So this is CPR Red Wine 6th edition. Gosh, I can't believe it has been 6 years since we've been doing this, man. Too much fun. It's really has, I want to say, taken on a life of its own. We expected it to, but you know, it's been meeting all our expectations and the fun and the adventuresome aspect of it. And from the winemaking point of view and blending, it's just always just fun stuff. You know, we put that original blend together, and for the first edition, we did the bottling. We bottled about 18% of it or so, and then the following year, we replaced that 18% with another grape, another varietal, and so right now, man, we are up to, gosh, well, I'm trying to remember, it's 8 different varieties, and I want to say it's, I'm looking at my notes here, 14 different vintages now blended in here. So first vintage being 2005. And but the fun part about it is you get this nice wisdom, if you will, in the wine with the age, and then we put this, intermingle it with this sophomoric youth, and so it brings some life to it and energy to the wine, and it's always fun to see how it changes. But you know, we try to pick varietals, we evaluate the wine, and then for what we're going to add next, we always try to find something. Well, maybe we want a little more acid, liven it up even a little bit more, so we might find something, well, maybe this year put some Sangiovese in it to get it a little more acid. 2 years ago, we added some Carmenere, and the peppercorn aspects of the Carmenere were definitely, you could pick that out and notice it. So this year we said, hey, we're not going to add the Carmenere to it. We're just going to mellow it out a little bit. And anyway, yeah, it's just tons of fun. So in fact, I can tell you what we added to this. I mean, so it's been 2 years since we, well, a year since we did all this. And so anyway, so we added a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon, and I knew we added the Malbec, and we also added a little bit of Syrah to this this past year. So, so those are our 3 youthful grape varieties that we added. And I can say varietals here because grape varieties refer to plants and varietals refer to wine. So good, just a good thing to know if you're reading things in magazines or publications, or you're watching a video or something. If somebody's referring to varieties, well, they're talking about grapes, the plants themselves, and varietals is after it's been made into wine. So we added those 3 varietals: Cab, Malbec, and Syrah. So anyway, when I first pour this, I'm going to pour a tiny bit more. This has been in my glass here for a bit, so I want to freshen up the nose on it. One of the things that just really super jumps out at me is just this real vivacious kind of baked fruit flavor. Blackberry really gets in there too for me. Some fresh cassis. So cassis is like it's a blackcurrant liqueur. And and I get little hints of tobacco. In the past, I've identified it kind of as cigar wrapper. So those are the tobacco leaves that actually wrap around the cigar itself. And I'm not getting quite as much of that right now. To me, it's more difficult to identify it specifically as cigar wrapper, but man, just these intense, the black fruit is just jumping out at me. There's a little bit of spice in there, a tiny bit of, I don't know, kind of fresh black pepper, really fine ground black pepper / white pepper. And, you know, in the nose, something that I'm just starting to get that I haven't noticed before. Again, it could just be this particular time and space anyway. I'm picking up a little pencil shaving, not just the wood itself. I'm not getting, you know, it's kind of almost a super fine, light cedary type, but, you know, more specific to number 2 yellow pencil, but without the graphite. And so that's kind of a little bit of wood spice. Anyway, it's just kind of really faint that I'm getting there on the nose. So anyway, but man, really silky, fine tannin structure to it. Not terribly grippy. But anyway, so the tannin structure in this is just absolutely beautiful. Like I say, it just has a tiny bit of grip to give you some tannin structure to it, but you know, it doesn't have any bitterness to it. It's just really, really delightful, and that the little bit of acid on it, it has good acidity, which really helps lift that fruit and makes it a little more lively on the palate. You know, when we look at white wines, summer wines that we want as refreshing, those are usually very, you know, higher in acid because it has a refreshing aspect and liveliness to it. But like I say, it also lifts the fruit and sometimes makes it seem almost a little bit more focused. And so I find this fruit, these black fruit flavors, anyway, it's all to be very, very focused, but the wine is really, really well integrated. And, you know, all the flavors, it's just not disjointed. Things aren't just all over the place. It's just really nice from start to finish across the palate there. The flavors just glide across. Ma'am. Well, anyway, some of the things that I'm getting on the palate here, again, the blackberry, the cassis, getting a little bit of that going on. Again, in the nose, it's more cassis. On the palate, to me, it's more black currant, a little fresher, again, because of that acidity. Cassis is really highly concentrated black currant, and but get a little bit of mulberry going on in there too. You guys ever have mulberry? And I'm getting a hint of baked blueberry. I sometimes get a little bit of that in Syrah. Actually, in Syrah, we find it quite a bit. But so the Syrah that's in here, I get just hints of baked blueberry happening. And get, gosh, a little bit of, there's a little bit of herbalness that is really delightful. It's just a super, super, super thin layer of it in there. And kind of, I don't know, sweet coriander kind of thing. Maybe, you know, a little Sangiovese. I don't know, maybe if I'm stretching a little oregano or something, but there's just a fun little savoriness. But the main aspect of it is just the intense dark fruit that, with that acidity, just really seems to help focus it. And but the finish in here is just a real, again, just complex finish. It just kind of from start to finish, we get all those things that I've been talking about on the palate, and it just kind of glides on through. And oh gosh. Yep. What can I say? It's good. Really, really good. Yes, ma'am.
Could you talk a little bit about like what made you even want to attempt doing a solera-style wine?
Yeah, it was just trying to do new things, you know, reading about soleras. And a lot of it was just trying to really, I wanted to see how long we could just keep a wine going, keep it alive. And, you know, the Chima kind of came, you know, some fun things about Chima. Just wanted to play with extended barrel maturation. And so I just wanted to put some things together and just really try to see how long we can just keep a wine alive and keep adding to it. And, you know, so, you know, great sherries and scotches are done this way. And, you know, they do it more in a way to try to even out or have a consistent flavor from year to year with their products. I mean, that's one of the reasons for the Solera style. But what we're doing here, we're actually adding different flavors to it, you know, and so using so many different varietals to blend in here. And so that's the whole thing. It's just kind of experimenting, adventuresome, learning about where wine can take us and what we can do with it. So you know, I'm hoping we can keep this going for 30 or 40 years. So we'll see. I don't know if we can do it. One of the interesting things is trying to, there's things that we have to do to preserve this wine. And so if we can keep the SO2 levels down, maintain respectable levels, and not let the wine in any sense get out of control as far as microbes, and staying on top of it, trying to keep things, the barrels all topped off. So yeah, it's this sense of adventure and blending it all together. It's just, that's the main reason for it. Is
Chuck,
to have fun.
Chuck, how do you judge, you know, when you've got like last year's CPR and you want to add some things, how do you know what to add? How do you, I mean, obviously you don't want to add something that would ruin the whole thing. So how do you experiment without, you know, damaging the rest of the wine?
Well, we don't take a lot of, we'll take samples of what we have in the barrel, and we'll take those samples out. We'll be tasting it, and we will think, okay, what can we do to it to improve it or to make it more interesting? Is there something at that point in time that's a little that sticks out a little bit? Like I mentioned earlier, the Carmenere, the pepperiness to it, in my mind anyway, was just a little more than I wanted to see in it. I mean, I wanted, so I don't want necessarily one varietal to be dominant in the whole thing. And with that, I felt that the Carmenere was starting to show itself just a little bit, being a tiny bit dominant anyway. It wasn't much, but you know, to me it was noticeable. So things like that. And I mentioned earlier about the acidity. That's when we originally put this Sangiovese in there. We wanted to freshen it up, get a little more acid in it. Right now, I tell you, the acidity in this is great. It's 6.7 grams per liter for a red wine. That's really good acidity, and that will help also on the aging of this, keeping this wine, maintaining its ageability, if you will. And the pH is, I think, right in the neighborhood where we want it. It's 3.75 pH on it. that's a little on the high side of red wines, but in the same token, when you look at perhaps some of the best wines in the world, most ageable, it's kind of counterintuitive actually, but that area, you know, a pH anyway, will usually show higher fruit concentration. And so fruit concentration is important as far as ageability too, because the more the wine ages, if that fruit keeps dropping out, or as wine ages, fruit does drop out. And so the more concentration of fruit we have, it's also going to lend itself to ageability. So we just look at factors like that, and how, and also trying to determine, okay, what in our cellar that we have that will lend itself to trying to take the wine in the direction that we want to go. So, so as far as you know, the blackberry really seems to be standing out to me. That's coming more from the Malbec and Cabernet Sauvignon. In there, I mentioned a little bit of blueberry, so that's coming from the Syrah, I can tell you that. And I also mentioned just a light bit of very fine pepper. You know, I'm sure that could be coming from a couple of different sources. It could be from Carmenere, from Cabernet Sauvignon. So sometimes Syrah can have a little pepper, but our Syrahs really don't tend to show much pepper to it. But so yeah, there's just all these fun little qualities to it. So yeah, and then we also have to try to be easy on the oak too. You know, we gotta. Some years we might, if we want to show a little bit more oak, we might stick a little of it in a new oak barrel or so for, you know, 6 months or something, and just try to bump the oak up a little bit if we feel that we need to. So, or vice versa, if we need more neutral oak, we put it in, well, more neutral oak. So yeah. So that's one of the fun things about this wine, though. We're always playing with it. It's a constant playground. So we're taking something that we started, you know, way back in 2005, although it's just 6 editions of this, but something that we put together. Sorry for the noise back there, but it's just always fun just to be playing with it. And you know, and every year, you know, our plots evolve too with it. And one thing that we really try to do, for me anyway, is fun, is I really love that melding that the old and the new. I like to say that I kind of metaphorically put it together with life. You know, it's so much fun when you have sage, older people around, and you know, mixing them and interacting with younger people that bring life and bring, you know, life to an older person's eyes, but yet that older person shares that wisdom with the younger person, and you get these wonderful interactions. Well, that same thing actually happens with the wine. We see that happening. It's cool. It's a lot of fun. So we have a blast there though, tasting it and trying to figure out what we're going to do. And so, but like I say, we have our unique twist to it. You know, that you know, we don't have anything, you know, separated by vintages. Everything's already blended in. You know, a true Solera, they'll keep the vintages completely separate, and they'll be adding the last vintage to it, you know, for the final blend. And usually it's a single varietal. So, but you know, we have our blend of varietals. So that's the other thing that's really kind of a little unique about it. So
it's a little more the sourdough approach.
it is. It's exactly what it is. San Francisco sourdough starter. So, yep. But we, you know, and I suppose you could throw different yeast in. Usually with a sourdough starter, though, I mean, the point is that your yeast, that starter yeast was, you know, sometimes over 100 years old, you know, and the culture is still alive. But yeah, so it's fun just trying to pick out different varietals that will try to work well with the blend and keep this adventure alive and keeping it moving forward. And what I'm tasting here in this CPR here, it is really, to me, it's going to keep on working for, I think, at least another 6 years anyway. So it's we're just going to keep it going forward. And you know, people like your question, how long do I think we can keep, you know, this will last? I don't know. That's part of the game, part of the adventure, is figuring that all out. I've never done it before, so we've never done it before. So that's what we're here to find out. So yeah.
Earlier you talked about what grapes and vintages you introduced into the 6th edition. And last few editions we've released, they've all been 8 grape varietals. We've kind of tapped out of the red wines that we're sourcing, except for Grenache, Mourvedre, and Cinsault.
Right.
Have any drive or desire to introduce new varietals down the road, whether it's one of them?
We're actually, I'll let a little secret out. We're actually going to be playing with some Tempranillo this year. So that could possibly work its way into it. So we'll see. I'm not opposed to adding more to it. It's got to be the right thing. Grenache could actually be a good one to add to the mix. This Cinsault Mourvedre, I don't really foresee that happening. I'm not going to say no, but I could see perhaps Grenache. The Mourvedre actually probably could, maybe sometime too. But I don't know. We'll see. I'm more inclined to say no on those 3, but the Grenache and Mourvedre possibly, but I can see the Tempranillo for sure being a part of this. So, good question though. That's fun, and you know, maybe some Tannat. If we ever play with some Tannat, that could be another really fun one to put in here. Big, huge tannic black grape, you know. So that could be fun. And there's tons of, you know, grapes, esoteric grapes that we could possibly do. But anyway, we really don't see those things growing around here. Not yet anyway. So